Hi guys, David Lovegrove here from Wing Chun Mind Force. I'm delighted today to have my friend who I've never met officially, Nima King, Sifu Nima King from Hong Kong.
Hey guys.
Yeah, I've been, I had to come up with a lot of money to get him to come on the channel, so I hope you listen to this. Yeah, but there he is, the famous Queen.
Pleasure to be here from my side as well. You're doing some good work, Dave, with all the effort just for the lineage. I'll start by saying that you've even though, like you said, we haven't met in person, you're one of the few guys that are actually putting in extra bit of effort for the lineage, for the Chu Shong Tin lineage. With what happened with the Wikipedia, if people didn't know, some people took off, Chu Shong Tin tried to take off Chu Shong Tin from Wikipedia. David put a lot of effort in to get it back. So it's much appreciated, all the work you're doing now. You're interviewing a lot of old school people and new school people. So, respect to you for that, mate.
Thanks, brother. Respect back to you. That really means a heck of a lot to me. And I do it really not to big note myself at all. I know that you're the same. I'm not going, hey, look at me, I'm great. I just looked at the scene and thought there's so much of this bogus Wing Chun, like what I think is bogus. People who really shouldn't be talking about Wing Chun, who are talking about it, and of course they do they say negative things about it too. But
yeah,
it's time we started to talk about our lineage, which we believe is like the real deal. It's definitely the real deal as far as Wing Chun.
Yeah.
What you've done with not only going and training with Sigung and so much amazing video you shared with us for years, and being on the Martial Man and doing the Martial Man camps, and it's marvelous stuff. You've inspired the heck out of me, and you've turned a lot of people onto Wing Chun. And
cheers.
And you're a cool young guy. I mean, I know you're not a kid, but I'm 63. You seem pretty young to me. What are you, about 35?
Relatively speaking, yeah.
I suppose you're older than 35, are you?
What's that?
How old are you? If I
37.
37. Yeah, good one.
Yeah,
that's a choice.
Yeah. It's still the body's still working. I'm still able to do sparring and stuff like that. Although I'm feeling it, these days I'm feeling it a lot more. But I'm trying to take advantage still of the remaining last drops of youth to be able to do sort of more dynamic stuff, sparring, not just with Wing Chun, even with Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, stuff like that. So, because I know, eventually, slowly, I'll have to start slowing down. So, yeah, I mean, I've been doing this Wing Chun. I started when I was 14, in a branch, in one of Jim Fung's branches in Sydney, in Gladesville, which is the area I was living in.
Mm-hmm.
And I was 14 years old, 1998 that was, and I was quite lucky because when I started, there was 3 instructors, and I was the only student at that branch.
Wow!
So there was 2 blue uniforms and 1 level 1 instructor. So there was Michael Warfield, which is an old school guy. I don't know if you know him, but he's old school. He was the reason that because I stopped for a while. He's the reason that I came back, because he really inspired me. He sort of really took me under his wings, and he was a level 3 back then. So he was really good. And then there was Tony Chu, which was a fresh blue uniform, and then there was this Italian dude called Ben, and Ben was he was a fighter, so he was doing other arts, so I was just really lucky. I'd go in, and it was this hour class, but I'd go in early and would end up staying later, and then afterwards we were in a community hall in Gladesville, and afterwards we would shut the doors, and Mike was like, don't tell anyone, make sure no one finds out, make sure Sifu doesn't find out, and we'll take out the gymnastics mats, because they were both doing jiu-jitsu as well.
Okay.
And I was just a teenager, so we started wrestling and stuff like that. So they gave me a really good Michael was really good in the technical, in the the leverage side of it, the joint movements and stuff like that. So I was wowed by, wow, the efficiency of Wing Chun. And then from then I would get the sort of the stuff that at that age I was interested in, which was the martial stuff, you know. So yeah, it was really good. It was a good little introduction to Wing Chun, and I stopped for a couple of years after that because my life went off. I veered off into the wrong direction, and then it, you know, it left a good mark on me. So then I came back afterwards, and I went to the main branch, the headquarters in the city, and then the rest is history. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow, that's cool. I've followed you closely, and I haven't heard that story, and I love that because I had a similar thing in that when I left Sydney after about 2 years of training, I trained under Sifu Jim, but you remember how it was. I didn't really train with him. I just trained with his instructors. And then I started with Susanna, and I was with her for about 1.5 years. And that was really good. I got a lot out of that. And then for several years, I didn't have anybody to teach me. And then Richard Antonini, Ivan Howe just turned up in my backyard. And at that stage, they were, you know, senior instructors. And I was like, bloody hell, I'm lucky, man. You know, and we used to do that. We used to train under Richard's house, just me and these two dudes who'd been doing it for 30 plus. Yeah. And I think that's probably why I'm still at it, because I had those fantastic guys to get me going.
Yeah, both of them are Richard and Ivan. They're both not just old school guys with a lot of experience, but they're both just really genuinely nice people. It's sort of, there's not much ego, you know, with Richard. It was funny because when I came back, I sort of I really got on well with. That's a time where Mark Spence was taking the full-time courses, and I got on really well with Mark because Mark he'd just come back from Napier, and he was running a group of bouncers and, you know, fighting every day and all that kind of stuff. And I just come from a similar, you know, quite a rough background, so we got on really well. And Mark sort of took me under his wings, and during that time it was funny. There was a lot of politics in the Sydney Academy, where we were sort of the outcasts, you know, where people were like sort of like, oh, they don't play by the rules, they're training outside and stuff like that. So during that time, Richard was I think it was the state sort of manager or the national manager or something like that. So he must have thought I was a little shit, you know, because I was the troublemaker in the Marks camp, you know. And then afterwards, you know, once I moved to Hong Kong, Richard and that visited Hong Kong, and then we had a really nice chat. And I apologized. I was like, man, I was just a kid. I'm sorry, you know, for all of this. And it's like, nah, it's all water under the fridge. And now me and Richard are really close. Like I saw him, but last time I saw him was in Adelaide, and he's just a lovely guy, you know. And speaking of Mark is the reason why I came to Hong Kong and started really training with Sigung, and you know, there's a real difference, obviously, from the way Sifu Jim's was and the way Sigung's teaching. There was a difference back then, and then towards the last years of Sigung's life, his teaching changed even more so. But I mean, you probably know this, your viewers probably know this as well, but Mark was training with Graham, and there was a trip there Mark and Graham Kirshner and those guys did, Rob Carey, which you had on your channel recently.
Yep.
I think it was 91, and that just blew everyone's mind, like Graham, Mark, all of them. So when I met Mark, he was basically just going off the videos, the hours and hours of footage they had of Chu Shong Tin during that time training together. And yeah, he was like, look, I can't explain, you know. He said one time they genuinely thought, like he said, they were walking home from Sigung's after like 6 hours of training. And he said, we actually talked about it with Rob, actually. He said, we genuinely thought that, you know, is he spiking our tea? Like, is it, because it's unreal, the stuff that they were feeling. Like, what made him say that is, Sigung was just doing Silum Tao, was just doing a very slow hooks out. And he said, two of them, it was Mark and someone else, could have been Rob, they held him and they were speaking, and Sigung really can't understand English that well. So they were speaking English, so okay, let's hold him. And they were holding as hard as they could. and Sigung was moving forward at the same speed, right? And they said, all right, let's let go at the same time, suddenly take a force off, and let's see what happens if he sort of, falls forward or anything like that, because there was a lot of compression, a lot of force accumulated. And then they let go, and Siegel's arm didn't even spring forward. He just continued moving at the same speed, which means their force didn't affect him at all,
Yeah, right.
And they're like, that's not, how is that possible in terms of physics? That's why they were going home going, something's not right here. This is not, doesn't make sense to us,
Yeah.
So when I met Mark, he was like, look, it's just different. And he sort of really talked Sigung up. And of course, when I met Sigung in 2003 in a seminar, touched hands with him, and then I was like, yeah, this is unreal. 2004, he came back and he demonstrated something and nearly hit me to the floor. And then right there and there, I'm like, no, I've got to go train straight under him. And lucky Jim Fong was so generous with, and he was so encouraging. That was my experience anyway, or me and the people that came with me, Murray, Sebastian, Enrico. There was a group of us that came around a similar time. He was so, like, when I told him I want to go see Sigung, he said, oh, great, yeah, I'll write you a letter. It's going to be so good. You'll love it. So he was very encouraging and very giving, because maybe people don't know, but during that time, Sigung wasn't accepting any students. And if you rocked up without a letter of introduction from your Sifu, you wouldn't be able to train. So we all needed to come with a letter. So so that was, one thing. If it wasn't because of Sifu Jim's introduction letter, I wouldn't be here. If it wasn't because of Mark, inspiring me to train with Sigung, I wouldn't have come, So a lot of people, a lot of things clicked into place, and a lot of people that influenced me being able to be where I am now, have my own school in Hong Kong, and doing what I'm doing. So yeah, got a lot of props to give to a lot of people.
Yeah, it's sort of like your fate, isn't it? It's like your calling is to be a Wing Chun teacher, and become a real master. And that's the thing that happens. I think if someone, the person has to have that love and that dedication to the art, that feel, that connection. This is what I want, but doors open. It's a bit of a cliche, but it really does happen. That you just
exactly, like stars aligned, right? Stars really did align, and for some reason, Sigung really took a liking to me. I don't know what the reason was. Like when I came, if you see the videos 2005 when we first arrived, they're sort of cringe-worthy, right? They make me cringe to watch myself back then. What was I, like 21 or something? And I was like, oh, so in a fight, everything was about a fight. Siegel was teaching Tata. I'm like, yeah, but in a fight, did you, so, and the guys have heard stories about, because I was a bouncer in the cross, and some of the guys in Hong Kong had heard, and they told Siegel when I arrived, oh, this guy's, he likes fighting and all that kind of stuff. And Siegel was like, oh, okay. So then a lot of demonstrations for powerful stuff or fast stuff. And back then he was still quite, he was quite active with showing real powerful stuff. He would always pick me, you come here, and then he would smash me. And then, so I trained with him for about 2 months, 2005. And then I'm like, okay, I'm going to go back to save a bit more money for a few months and come back and get everything in order, because I decided I want to move here. And before I left, just randomly, he turned to me. There was about 4 of us going back, and he said, so when are you going to start teaching? When are you going to open your own school? And I was like, oh, actually, I was teaching already, for Sifu Jim and things. He said, yeah, but when are you going to open your own school? I was like, oh, I don't know when. I'll coming back. And so that really put something in my head that, he's asking me to teach. He's like, oh, great, So then when I came back, of course, after, I think 2008, we established the school here. And he was really, really happy. I told him we're going to be in Central, which none of the locals are teaching in Central, because it's like, in terms of the rent, just to give you an idea, the rent is 12 times more expensive than what right now Horace is paying, Siegel Son's paying. So it's like, it's ridiculously more, right? So, and he's like, good, so it's in Central. And he, as soon as we opened, he came with C4, everyone, to sort of just, sort of back us up, talk to the students. And then he came and did 3 seminars here, and he announced in the first seminar, he said, I've done seminars all around the world, in America, in Europe, in Australia, but I've never done any seminars in Hong Kong in the last 60 years, and this is my first one.
Wow.
And then he ended up doing 2 after that as well. So really sort of, really backed me up, which meant so much. And not just him, but his family, Sipo, even after he passed away, Sipo just says good stuff, and all the senior students. So it was like people saw it, people saw, okay, this guy is willing to put in the time, so let's add fuel to his fire type thing, and I really felt that from a handful of people, his family, but a handful of the really senior students of Sigung, which are like, look, keep going. There's a lot of, because you're not a local, and let it be said that in the first couple of years we had to earn people's respect, everyone's respect, because Sigung was coming around giving a lot of attention to us, and the locals that started talking, the word got back to us that you guys are not liked because you're coming here out of nowhere and you're taking all the instruction, you're taking our Sifu's time. He's not, because and why was that? Because he was open for 6 hours. We would be there literally behind the door. When he opens the door, we're already waiting to come in, and we would be the last to leave. No one had ever done that. I mean, there was people like Akon, which everyone knows in his lineage. Akon used to be there, and he used to be there for about 4 or 5 hours. But to be there from really the opening to close, there was Akon, there was Ma, that would be there for 3-4 hours. The 6-hour ones only we did. So I guess Siegel was like, oh, and he says in his DVD, I thought I'm going to change my teaching from the fighting aspect from Chisao just to be able to pass on Lim Tao. And I thought to myself, even if I have no one showing up, if I lose all my students, so be it. But this is what I'm going to do. And it's in his second DVD where he's saying this. And he says, but then there was a group of students that actually started to come more, and they started to like it. Those group of students are the Guaylos, are the white guys. They were us guys,
Right.
And when we started doing it, he started to give us attention and give us more attention because we were there. We were willing to stand there and do Silam Tao for 6 hours. The locals saw that, and then they started doing it. And then a lot of the old school guys left because they just wanted to come in and cheese out and punch each other in the face. That was removed. So, and they didn't want to stand, maybe because they were a little bit older or whatever. They didn't have the patience, or they were a little bit older. Their knees was hurting, whatever. They didn't stay. So there was a massive shift in the whole Siegel's teaching, Siegel's school, and it was right around the time 2004, 2005, 2006, and when we arrived. So the timing was, again, the stars aligning. It was perfect timing for us,
Yeah, it's cool. It's you probably realize I'm really old school kung fu. Like, I can literally brag that I first became a Bruce Lee fan in 1967, which is,
wow.
That's a long time ago.
Yeah.
I was a little 9-year-old fighter, and I grew up fighting too, pretty rough areas in Brisbane. And I just loved Bruce Lee. I didn't know his name was Bruce Lee. He was just Kato to me in the Green Hornet. Yeah. I used to just copy him like a little fella. Well, I remember doing side kicks and spinning kicks and all sorts of stuff. And
I've seen some photos of you doing stuff. You've got some photos of that time. Yeah.
Oh, there's 2 photos. One of them's quite wicked because I just come home. It's about 1975. Just come home from watching Fists of Fury, and there's that part at the end when Bruce does the big kick. I mean, I might be wrong. It might have been the Big Boss because he does some big kicks in that too. But my best mate was a boxer from Trinidad, and his father trained the world, like the heavyweight champion of Trinidad. And he wanted to train me for the Olympics at that time.
Wow.
Because he reckoned I had it. And also I had a good sort of Irish nose that wouldn't break so easy.
Yeah.
I had a good brain too, and I thought, I don't want to really be in the ring. I just thought it was not a good idea for me. But we came home, me and my mate went to that. I think it was either the Big Boss or the Fist of Fury, but saw it at the cinemas, and we got out the front, and my sister had this box brownie, this real old-fashioned camera that you have to sort of, it's like from the 40s, you hold it down like that and look through this little thing. So this flying kick picture, it's sort of impossible. Like, I mean, I'm about 6 foot in the air. I was a pretty good high jumper, Didn't have any idea what I was doing. I was just mimicking Bruce. The system click and somehow captured that image. And
yeah, and it's a good photo. Yeah.
yeah, but yeah, the love of Wing Chun sort of started early. Now I've lost track. Why did I start telling you all about that? What was the last thing?
Doesn't matter, but it's a good story.
Anyway, yeah, it's a good story. Wing Chun Kung Fu tragic, like yourself. That's right. Yeah, it's just you guys are like. There's been so many cool movies where there's the young sort of Guaylo sort of kids in Chinatown in San Francisco or somewhere, and they're punks, you know, or they meet the Chinese Kung Fu master and he puts them on their ass, and then they're all going, "Oh, Sifu, please teach us."
Yeah, exactly.
And they're really keen.
Yeah.
I love that.
It was exactly like that. It was exactly like that. And you know, listening to Sigung speak later on, you know, I mean, one of the videos in his second DVD, the last thing it ends with is saying, "Look, I don't know how much time I have, and I've dedicated my life to teaching this, and I haven't been successful in being able to teach it to any students that the Nim Tao aspect, you know." And that's another thing where I think initially when Sigung passed, or around the time that I started to be a bit more active online, maybe a lot of people didn't like me because I mean, within our lineage, because I started coming out and saying, "Look, we don't, like, people don't have Nimlik." Like, everyone started saying, "Yeah, I'm feeling Nimlik," and saying, "Guys, that could be relaxation, could be intention, but it's not Nimlik." Because Sigung actually broke it down, and there was everyone from Tony, Albert, everyone coming to Hong Kong. And the good thing about Sigung's place is there was just no BS. There was nothing. There was like, you come there, you either can do this or not, and he would show it and prove it in so many different angles, that this person's spine is locked in this vertebra, in these 3 vertebrae. And he would show it and he would prove it and he would get you to touch it. It's not just, "I'm saying this, so this is how it is," you know? And it'll be, okay, because this person's locked here, he can't receive the Nimlik from me or whatever. He can't sing, he can't rise the spine, he can't decompress the joints. As a result, he can't do this and he can't. So a lot of the people that came, a lot of seniors that came, they, I won't name names, but it was a couple of guys from Sydney that came. One of the most senior people in Sydney at the time, this is after Sifu Jim had passed away, and I heard afterwards they were going back in Sydney and saying, "Look, don't go there." They were telling students, "Don't go there, it's not worth it, it's pretty crap, food is bad, and the training is just weird," and all that. Why did that happen? Because they were like, they were the shit, like, in Sydney, but when they came here, Sigung was like, they can't, their spine's locked. So they couldn't do the elementary Taekwondo and Sing to be able to even talk about the other stuff that was being taught. And that was a massive shock, right? He didn't sugarcoat anything in that way. So so then, you know, I tried to convey that in saying, "Guys, this is something very real. It's not airy-fairy, you know," which is a lot of other internal martial arts. To believe in Qi, energy, and Nimlik, all that, I of course do, because of Sigung, right? Of course I do. Of course I believe in all that. But you know, the difference, I think, from what I've come across, because especially after Sigung died, like, I went, you know, the martial man, like you mentioned, and not just that, but I went to Korea just to meet DKU, just to talk, because I'm like, okay, this guy's got something. So I contacted him. I said, "Look, we want to do a trade," and I went there and I spent 2.5 hours with him, sharing. You do your thing, I'll do my thing, and afterwards he paid for I had a seminar in Korea. He paid for one of his students to come to my seminar, and the student's like, "Can I film?" He was taking notes, you know. So DK is very open-minded like that. If you see something genuine, he tries to bring it on and add to his, you know. So what I'm saying is, I went to mainland, in Hong Kong here, spent a long time searching after Sigung passed away for people that are doing similar stuff. You know, people talk about Dantian, and Sigung's like, no, we don't do Dantian. Ours is in the spine, blah, blah, blah. And I didn't come across anyone that was doing anything similar to what we're doing, right? So, but Sigung's like left a blueprint behind, and I'm like, guys, let's not just use the words from his books and say, "Yeah, look, I'm using my Nimlik, and let's just because we all have a real chance to be able to either be able to do it before we pass, or have, make sure that the blueprint is very clear. It's not tainted by, I can do this, I can do that. So then the next generation can pick it up, because it's something that otherwise it's lost forever, and it's just going to be words. It's just going to be, yeah, I'm doing Nimlik, you see, and then it's just like what's happened in, not disrespect Tai Chi or any other, but what's happened in a lot of Tai Chi things where people are like, yeah, look, to a point of no touch Chi, where the guys, they get stuck in their own things because they only do stuff with their students, and they're going like that, their students are falling, and the guy actually believes that he can do that to a point where he takes a challenge with a real MMA fighter and gets smashed, right? So that's just, I just didn't want, and I know you're on the same page. I didn't want people to, I didn't want that to happen to our lineage, because it was so tangible what Sigung was teaching, and there is a blueprint. There's step by step. Okay, can you sing? You can sing in the spine, or you do have an intel. Okay, you should then be able to do this, that where people can put their hand on your back, and you should be able to do this. Otherwise, you're not doing that. So, and I think in the beginning when I started doing that, a lot of people were like, hold on, who are you to no one made you the authority to say no one's doing this now. I'm not the authority. I'm just saying, Chu Shong Tin said, he's saying no one has Nimlik, not Ada, not anyone. Before he passed away, Ada was able to do a little bit of it, but he was very clear on, and he would name, and then we, being the Westerners, I would ask him questions that was like, sometimes the translators wouldn't want to translate, because it was like, oh, the Chinese thing is a respect. Because I would like name, I won't name names now, but I'll be like, one by one, the seniors in Australia or whoever, and I'll be the seniors in Hong Kong. I'll be like, this person, can he rise? How much can he rise? Who's better, this one or this one? And Siegel would just answer. He'll say, well, I think this one, because this one's close. If they do the same thing, this one will probably have more chance of getting there because da, da, da. And lucky I did ask those questions, because it really categorized and made you say, he's far away from being able to do CST's method, even though he's trained under Sigung in Hong Kong for 30 years, because he's stuck in the idea of joint rotation. He's, so it really gave clarity to what Sigung's teaching, I even asked him stuff like, is it bad? So the Nimlik, if you have too much sex, for a man, you lose your jin. Is that bad? Is that bad for, for Nimlik? And, and the translator, I forgot who the translator was. He was like giggling, and I'm like, man, ask. I wish I could ask him. My Cantonese is like, well, just ask him. I want to know. Sigung's like, no, it doesn't affect the Nimlik, because Yip Man had said something in one of his 10 or 12 things.
I was going to ask you about that, because that's one of the puzzles. Why does he say this? Preserve your some sort of coy way they say it, but it obviously means don't go doing it too much.
Yeah, I think I personally, because I do. I mean, I've been doing delved into meditation a couple of years after I started Wing Chun, right? And in Hong Kong, did a lot of 10-day courses and did a lot of yoga and a lot of reading on the yogic side of things, and they call it prana. So chi in Chinese, or hei in Cantonese, chi in Mandarin, ki in Japanese, prana in Indian, in Pali. So but in yoga they say that you got to preserve prana, you don't overdo it, and that sort of makes sense to me. Western, a good boxing coach will say don't do it a week before your fight, because your knees will buckle easier, right? Hicks and Gracie, the Gracies would say it before a fight. Hicks and Gracie wouldn't. There's a video of him talking about that, where his wife is washing dishes in the back. It's like, oh no, we don't do that, not with the Gracies, and Hickson's like, yeah, because it's a life force, energy, you got to preserve it before a fight, So there's a lot of things, but I was asking specifically related to Nimlik. So if you're doing that, after doing that, for Sigung's case, where he was, I mean, there's one thing, that for people watching, if they haven't felt it, it's very, very hard to believe it. But talking about why I believe in this stuff, the chi, I don't believe in no touch chi, that stuff at all. Neither did Chu Shong Tin. He doesn't believe it because he tried to move a tissue for 6 months. He was feeling stuff coming out, and he tried to move a tissue just a little bit, and he couldn't do it. But he tried, and when we say Sigung tried for 6 months, means he was doing it every day for a long time. And he couldn't do it. And he's like, yeah, no, that stuff doesn't work because I tried it. It doesn't work. But what you were able to feel is you hold him, and usually it was the forearm, the thighs, upper arm. And he would go, okay, this is me tensing, and you would feel an old man, little muscles tensing. This is me sort of floppy relaxing, you would feel softness. Now, this is me infusing it with what he would call nimlik, right? And then, you know, for people watching, you just got to take my word for it. There's tens of people that felt it. There's videos of, you know, him doing it here in seminars. But you'd feel like little ripples, like tangible, like little mini spiders going down his arm. His arm would expand and there was a flow. And then he'll go, okay, now I'm going to make it go backwards. So you would feel that the direction will go that way. So and I shit you not, like you hold his head, you hold his skull, and you'd feel it a little bit expand, and there was flow in that. Ada could do that as well. Before he passed away, I couldn't do that. I could do all the other stuff, like, you know, to get it feeling through my body with his, but through the head, I wasn't able to do that. Ada was able to do it with his correction. So, you know, this stuff was like, and we were there, like, you think after 9 years, you know, training over 10,000 hours with him, I wouldn't be surprised. But, you know, till the end, I mean, he had a stroke where his eye was completely red. Like, you could hardly make the black out of it because it was complete. So I came in, he was fine the day before. Next day I came in, it's all, and I was like, he goes, oh yeah, I had a bit of a stroke, and well, you're right, man. You know? And then he's like, yeah, actually it was good. You know, in the weeks after, it's like, actually it was good that happened, because now because I put my mind in it, now I'm able to control I forgot if the left or right, because, you know, Nim Tao area is the back upper part of the brain. He said, now I'm able to tap into this area. We're like, well, what does it do? He's like, I don't know yet, but I can feel, I can activate it. And this was like 6 months before he died. You know, he was very pro. So he was still improving. He was still, you know, exploring and all of that right to the last moment. It's just he didn't have time. Yeah. And people say, like, look, if did Chu Shong Tin, was that the pinnacle? Absolutely not. If Sigung was able to live for another 20 years healthily, he would be much better than he was before he died. And he did say that. So it's not this thing of he had it and we don't have it. You know, it's not that thing. It's just, it's like a ladder that goes, we don't know how far the ladder goes, how high it goes. But, you know, again, this is why, you know, I try to keep things realistic and say, guys, don't say you're using Nimlik. You're misunderstanding. You know, let's at least all try to be on the ladder. Someone could be on the 2nd step, someone's on the 5th step, Sigmund's on the 20th step. But let's at least all get on this ladder and make sure we preserve the blueprint so that the next generation can find out about this ladder. You know, that's all I'm saying. And that's what he was saying, you know.
Okay. Fantastic. And that's, you know, why I haven't actually seen your course, but I've heard so much good about it. And a lot of the people who follow me, they write to me and said, you know, glad to find your channel. And I'm also doing Nima's course, and, you know, always really excited about what they're learning. And I don't suppose he'd mind it. You know, our mutual friend, Tony Saylor, was raving to me about how good your course is. And I was really taken with that, because Tony doesn't rave about stuff easily. And there's one or two other people. One of them's Seabuck Frederick in New Zealand, but there's Tony, and there's another couple of people that I feel are really far out and have taught me a lot of interesting things. But Tony, Tony blew me out from the very first time I met him. I'll just quickly tell you this story. When I first met him, like, as I said, I'm sort of a, you know, big ruffian. I'm a gentle guy, but I've been a bouncer, and I fought right through my youth, and I was actually a policeman for a couple of years. I've never admitted that before, but that was a pretty rough job. And I'm the sort of guy people look at and think, oh, I won't fight him. You know, looks like he can go. But when I met Richard, said, you know, this really well-known guy, Tony Saylor's been up doing a seminar in Surface, and I'm bringing him over tomorrow. So you wanted to pop around, you can meet him. And my first impression was he just looked like a nice, ordinary bloke next door. Didn't look like a martial artist to me. Not at all. As I talked to him, I picked up something in his eyes. I thought, this guy's got a bit of go in him. And then he says to me, "Oh, I'll demonstrate something." So we got 5 punching mitts. Yeah, just the little hand ones. And we put 5 of them. So there's, they're just sort of touching each other. And he says, most people punch like, if you said punch this, they go like that. And it gives me a sort of a shove, punch, shove, Oh, yeah. He says, but I do it like this. And I see him, he just seemed to do that. Like literally, I didn't even see a movement. And then I got hit on the spine by something.
Yeah.
I'm pretty open to stuff. And I said, that's like telekinesis. He says, no. He says, I just focused on your spine, on a tiny little point in your spine. I said, yeah, sure. But that's telekinesis, man, because I'm a big Star Wars nerd. You can probably see Master Yoda there.
Yeah. Nice.
I really love the Force and all that. But I said, do it again. Come on, do it again. And this time it was like clock. And I thought, whoa. And that was the start of something for me. I never, unfortunately, got to meet Sigung, but just what Tony did made me go, holy hell, there's something real to this.
Yeah.
And, I haven't met anybody else who can do exactly that. I've felt that type of thing in the arms from others, and it's sort of set up a bit in me, but it's not something I can't just make energy waves go up and down. I can feel something moving, and I can feel something moving me at times. But Tony, who I highly regard, he was raving about your course. Not only how well it was put together, professional, but just the content. He thought it was superb, and I know he did a little video for you.
Yeah, he did, which I'm very grateful for. He's actually, look, with the online school that we have, that was like around, I myself was very skeptic with being able to pass on. I mean, videos are great, books are great, you can convey information, but to really get the essence out there, I'm like, it's got to be in person, and still, in-person training. If you with a teacher that can do hands-on stuff, like within this lineage, there's a lot of hands-on, tactile correction, joint manipulation stuff, and I believe only a handful of people can do it proper. In fact, Sigung said people don't know what they're doing. They could guide the student fully in the wrong path. But I was myself. Sort of, should I do it? And I was with Sifu Mox from he was also from from
Oregon, isn't it? He's a great guy.
He's a lovely guy. Yeah, so he's got one of the biggest Wing Chun channels on YouTube, Nord Wing Chun, and he started with Jim Fung as well, and then he moved on to Derek Fung. So he's now he's been training with Derek Fung for a couple of decades, I believe. Don't quote me on that, but yeah. But Mox was here, and he was in business. He was for business. He was in Hong Kong, and he just rocked up at my school. And he's like, "Hey, Mox." He's like, "Okay." That's the first time I met him. He just rocked up. He's like, "Yeah, hey, I just wanted to come and show respect." And we took a photo. And I said, "What are you doing? Let's go for lunch." He said, "You got time for lunch?" "Yeah, let's go." So at lunch, he's like, "Man, you got to. I've started doing this thing for Derek Fong, and it's quite easy. You got to start an online thing." I'm like, "Man, I don't know if it would, and he just basically spent an hour talking me into it. And he said, "Look, there's no one has spent the time that you have with Siegel. No one has, right? Especially being English speaking in the last 10 years. Don't just do it for yourself. You got to do it. Like, you sort of, in some ways, he sort of made me feel like you got to do it. Like, you got to document it, So, and I was like, and then afterwards, like, yeah, okay, yeah. It sort of convinced me. And then, like, an hour, 2 hours later, it was probably at the airport, he sent me links to the programs that I can use for subtitling. And then, so he really pushed me to do it. And then I'm like, okay, I'll give it a go. And once I started to actually start filming it here with the boys, I'm like, wow, this, it made me a much better teacher. Because without being able to touch someone, to be able to explain something and say, okay, they should learn this. They should learn about Taigong and Sing before they learn about joint rotation, before they learn about flow, before, to sort of categorize it like that. I was like, no, this is good. This can work. And then people that were doing it before COVID, obviously, people that were doing it for like a year or two, they come here and they were better than like someone that did the online school for like a year and a half. They were better than some of our private students here that were training for like 3 years. So
Yeah.
then Lawrence, you guys, people watching probably knows Lawrence. He's one of my best students here, been with me for 11 years. Lawrence was like, man, they're actually better in like elbow force than some of our private students. And then I'm like, yeah. So we're like, why? Then what we realize is because the private students here, they got all these different teachers, 5 different teachers. So I'll look at them and I'll be like, okay, you need to work on the short, whatever. You need to work on X. And then next week they might be with another teacher, and that teacher's like, yeah, you need to work on this. And it's all true, you know.
Yeah.
This person has rooms for improvement in 20 different areas. But because there's not a systematic way of, look, you got to work on this and only work on this until you can do it to such a level before you move to the next one, because they weren't getting that. And the online student was, because it's very clear, make sure you do this, don't rush it before you do the next thing. The online students were better in some ways than these ones. These guys were better in Chi sparring and stuff, but in the internal CST, just the form power and stuff, they were better. So that was really good, because that made us then reflect upon how we're doing things here, and we change things in the school here as well. So yeah, I was skeptical myself, but yeah, it really does, and it's really heartwarming now, because now there's different parts of the world, people are connecting with each other. So there's little CST meetups from these, like in Germany, there's a regular one, Miguel, he's actually really good, and he's the one that hosts my seminars in Munich. And he's getting, and you know, the last gathering was like 10 people showed up from all over Germany, you know, and they're just doing CST Wing Chun stuff, you know, even though they never met Sigung, they haven't, you know, so it's really good. So the plan is really spread it like that. So then when we go around, anyone, when any of us, you go around, Tony, Mark, Albert, whoever goes around globally and does seminars, whoever's up for it, the people standing in front of you, you don't have to spend time talking about what Taigong is or what Sing is or what, they know it all already, and they've been working on it. So then they're already sort of on the ladder. Then hopefully within a few hours, you can make them go to the next step of the ladder, or at least give the directions with tactile correction, with actual physical feeling, to make them go to the next level, you know. So hopefully it's like this. That's my dream, you know, that in a decade, in 2 decades, there's going to be thousands of people doing this. And that's thanks to the internet. That's thanks to, you know, you can't do that with a book, you know. So yeah. And on one thing on Tony, just let me just say, make one thing clear on Tony. You know, continuing on from Siegel's no BS kind of thing. But see, this is from Chu Shong Tin's mouth when he was alive. So, you know, let's say 10 years ago, what Sigung said is that Tony is the most relaxed person in terms of the Wing Chun relaxation in Australia. Okay. When Tony came here, as I said, there's no BS. When people come here, Sigung wouldn't sugarcoat stuff. So when he came, and he would come here, you know, came here, I don't know, 6 or 7 times during the time Sigung was alive when I was here. And towards one of the last trips he was here, that's the time where Sigung was, you know, putting the Nim leg in people. So he would touch someone's head or shoulder and inject this thing. And again, people might think, oh, that's airy fairy bullshit. It's a hypnosis or whatever. Look, there's a video of me with my shirt off, and he's touching my spine or my head off. I've got something in it, and you can see with the reason I took my shirt off is people can see that areas of, as he's injecting it in, are actually tangibly, visibly opening and relaxing. And as it's going like that, you can see the spine expanding, and the person resisting, you can see the joint moving, so you can see it, you know. Now, people could say, yeah, you're just faking it. You have that ability already, but you're pretending like you can't do it until he touches you. So they could always say that until they feel it. You know, the video doesn't do justice to the reality. But anyway, it is real. You know, take my word for it, for the ones watching.
Yep.
Yeah, but not many people could receive that Nimlik or whatever that thing is, whatever that instruction is. They couldn't receive it. Why? Because they weren't, like, I'm talking about some of the seniors here, some of the very seniors here that now have, I won't name names, but they have their own schools, and they have my respect. They're very good fighters. But some of them, because Sigung, it was funny because the last, not funny, but surreal that during the time I trained with him, like we'd come in and then he'd be like, there'll be a whole new thing. He'll be like, I'll be watching, and it was always Ada. He would find through Ada the next thing, that this whole injecting chi or the looking in the eye thing, that was all, he was figuring it out as well, Siegel, with the use of Ada. And then she was able to do it, and then he'll try on everyone else, no one else could do it. And usually like within 2 months, I could do it, or Peter Wonka or someone else could do it. But there was a handful of people that were sort of keeping up with Ada, but she was always the first one. And there was some stuff that she could do towards the end that none of the others could do, right? But this injecting the energy thing where people could relax, pretty much not many people from Australia coming could do it to the level that he was able to do it on Tony. And that was, oh, sorry, not the chi thing, sorry. It was the eye looking thing, which was,
right.
The stages were either tactile joint manipulation, he could get nearly everyone off the street, at least to relax their shoulder joint, where their friend would push on their elbow and their shoulder would buckle. Sigung would set them up and get their friend that's not a compliant person to push on, and then they'll be like, wow, there's so much more force. So that was localized correction of the joint, manipulation of the joint. Then a few years down the track, 2008, 2009 maybe, he started to do the chi, or whatever you want to call it, the Nimlik injection, where he could relax. So for me, let's say he could touch the top of my head and relax my hip joint. So if someone's stopping me from moving my leg at my knee, I wasn't like someone really strong and big, maybe I can't move them. He'd put his hand here, and then I'll be able to feel it, and my whole body would open up, then I could move. After that, it started with Ada, where he was looking at eyes and be able to convey the message, pass on the instruction of what she needs without talking, just by looking in the eyes, and she was able to put on the state or go deeper into the state. Now, this, I think only a handful of people could do it in Hong Kong. Maybe 6 or 7 people, different levels.
Are you saying only a handful could receive it from Sigung?
Could receive it, yeah. And then there was, so for me, I could do it a couple of months after Ada, right? But then I'd come in some days and Sigung would try with me, and then I'll be like, then I couldn't do it. And he's like, see, you're thinking too much. You're using the front lobe. You're using the analytical part.
Right.
So it was a state thing. It was really a Nim Tao state thing. Anyway, long story short, that time that Tony came, let's say there's about maybe 10 people, a bit less than 10 people that could do it in Hong Kong. And he was trying with many different seniors that came from Australia. With some seniors, he didn't even try. Some of the head teachers that would come from Australia, he didn't even try the eye thing because he knew that they can't do it, because they had trouble even rising the spine. And with Tony, I think I've got it on video. If not, Tony would probably have it on video. He's like, okay, so he's trying to turn, I can't relax. And Signal's like, through translation, tell him to look in my eyes and don't think about anything. And Tony sort of looked in the eyes, and then it was just with a simple movement, like a tansa or something, so to be able to relax out here. But and how fast someone could receive it was also an indicator of how their state is. Within about less than 10 seconds, Tony could do it. And that really surprised me, because for us, yeah, I could do it, but I was with Siegel thousands of hours. Anything, like, I was right there. I was geared for it. And I said this in one of the seminars and one of the talks I did for the CSD gathering in Sydney. And I said that shows a lot, that without having Siegel there to go, like for me, I'd fall off. I'm on the ladder and I'd fall off. Siegel's like, go left, go right. See, I was getting guidance, right? But not to have Siegel there, to be able to do that, to be that close to tapping into the same state he's talking about, that's heavy. That's real shit, So to your point of you hadn't felt some of the stuff that Tony was doing, that's because they can't do it. And some people can do it in power generation, but and Tony would tell you himself, there's something like in Chi Sao, Tony himself, told me 7 years ago that he just started to pick up Chi Sao again, because he neglected Chi Sao for a long time, but so he was doing more striking, more real fast. If you punch him, he was confident to say anyone, okay, stand up and punch me, and so that was his thing. But then he started to realize, actually, he said, believe it or not, Sigung came to him in a dream and said, you have to start doing TSAT. So when he came to Hong Kong, he said, man, I've just started doing it again like 6 months ago. So, and another thing about Tony and Albert and Mark, all those guys that would come, with Tony and Albert, was funny because they were and Mark, you know, they were the shit. They were the kingpins, right, of the lineage. And when they first came, the first couple of times, so we were here for like 6 months, a year, the first time they came, and they were like, yeah, you know, so same thing. They were the teachers, we were the student type thing. They're very respectful from both sides. But then Sigung would come around and say, yeah, to Albert, for example, yeah, hold this guy's shoulders. And then he'll be like, he'll open us up. And Albert's like, and in the beginning, Albert's one of the strongest people I've ever met in my life. He's a rock, right? So he wouldn't, in the beginning, he wasn't being compliant at all. And he would use, you know, his force, and we wouldn't be able to do anything against him. But then after a while, when Sigung was talking, he's like, no, watch what they're doing. Then within the second trip, Tony was like, okay, so what are you guys working on? What is it? You know, it changed completely. That and Mark as well and Albert as well. That says a lot about they were willing to drop the whole, no, I've done it for 30 years longer than you, or Mark, I was your teacher before. They were willing to drop that ego for the love of learning, you know. And Tony, going back to Tony being on my online school, he actually messaged me. He said, you know, I'm interested in doing it. You know, hope you don't mind. I was like, man, it's an honor to have you, you know, doing like that. Because he said, look, like you were there with Sigung, so he's hungry to know what was said by Sigung, how he, you know, and that is not easy. I mean, you know yourself, your age, your experience as a martial artist, to just go, okay, I want to listen to this young person. Drop my. It's not an easy thing to do. It says a lot about someone's character to be able to let go of the ego like that, you know. And a lot of them, as I said, couldn't do that, and they went back to Australia and said, "Nah, don't go to Hong Kong. It's no good." You know, so yeah, Tony's definitely one of the best, if not, you know, if not the man in Australia, or one of the top 3 or 4, definitely in Australia.
That's a good assessment of him. And as you were saying about lacking the ego, that's as far as I'm concerned, that's the key to Wing Chun. If you can not become the big man, if you can, as soon as you do that, because I sort of learnt this when I went to art school. I went to this classical art school in Sydney called Julian Ashton's. And the tradition we were learning, no bullshit, I remember getting a book about Pompeii, and I'm looking at these ancient Roman paintings, and I'm going, shit, this is the stuff they're teaching me here 2,000 years later. I could see all these ideas, I could see even they mixed the paint with this, and I went, that's what we use. It's real simple stuff, but 2,000-year-old tradition. And the thing I learned there was that, I mean, I went there thinking I was pretty good. You know, I went there thinking I was already a sort of an artist. And within a couple of days, I went, God, I am the worst piece of shit here. I'm just like the gum on the shoe here. They were so amazing. And the teachers, it was just the students were incredible. The teachers were like out of this world. Yet none of them had an ego, you know, and you could always tell really quickly. I learned that anybody with an ego was mediocre. And the very best people were always the real nice, real humble. And you'd see people treat them like just some dude, and they wouldn't realize they're talking to like a god of art. And that taught me a lot about how to learn Kung Fu, because I've seen, remember in Sifu Gym School, it was a bit of a thing. It wasn't terribly common, I guess, but get the blue shirt, that status, it would change people.
It was pretty common, yeah.
I mean, that's in this art school, it was like that. After the first year, we had this a scholarship. It was 4 scholarships. It was one that was the Ducks Nuts. If you got that one, you were big time. And I saw that bloody scholarship ruined a few young, brilliant artists, because once they got their scholarship, they couldn't listen to anybody anymore. I said to the teachers who were mates of mine, look what he's doing with that leg there he's drawing, you know, he's doing this, all the things you say not to do. And the teacher said, no, I can't talk to him anymore, you know. Now he's won the scholarship and he's just too bloody good and won't listen to me. And I remember thinking that scholarship's a curse. You know, that status, to get that status is a curse, because they just stop, they grind to a halt.
Yeah. And that would have been a blessing for you to really realize early on, or tell yourself early on that actually I'm not that bloody good, you know. For me, it was really good because I've been teaching for about 5 years in Sydney, private lessons, and I was running a branch for Sifu Gym in North Sydney. They put me on it because they were going to close it down, and then Mark Spence said, Nima, why don't you, because it was like a 1 minute walk from Mark's house, where it was in a PCYC, 1 minute walk from his house. He said, why don't you, put your hand up for it? And I was like, okay, good idea. Back then, whatever Mark said, I'd do. You know, he's the one that encouraged me to be a bouncer as well and all that. So whatever he suggested, I would do, because he was my teacher and I would look up to him. And I was like, okay. So I think I asked Tony Stewart or Sifu or someone, and anyway, they gave it to me, and I made a few changes, and within 1 year, it became one of the biggest branches in Sydney. And Sifu was really happy and stuff like that. So I was teaching there, and I was with Mark. I don't know if you know much about Mark's style of training, but back then, that's why school's called Chi Sao Club, because we did a lot of Chi Sao, and that's how Mark trained his bouncers, right? He would just do Chi Sao, and the Chi Sao wasn't just, it was pretty much like my Zyphoid process, the little dangly bit that hangs down here is like this. I've got broken, like, because he used to just punch the shit out of me, right? Like,
I used to hear
and I would do that, and
what
it would. Yeah, and there was times where we would go for hours, you know, in his garage, and a footnote, that's not what he's doing now, and that's not the way to train Chi Sao, but that's just what we did. He was training bouncers, and there was a couple of times where, you know, I went with people, and afterwards they were like, man, this guy's shitting blood for a couple of days, you know. So it was very bad. Like, we were hitting each other literally as hard as we could, not in the face, but in the body. Anyway, so with the Chi Sao, right? So I was doing a lot of that, and I was sort of like Mark's right hand man. If someone talked bad about Mark, I would hear. I'm like, okay, just leave it to me, and I'd go, hey man, you want a Chi Sao? And I'll just beat the shit out of them. Whether they were blue uniform, they were whatever, I would just do that, right? So I was really, really arrogant, and everything can be solved with, do you want to fight? Okay, let's just fight then. Let's see if who, you know. So it was like that. I went with that attitude. And because even with the blue, like, senior instructors and blue uniforms and stuff, I didn't think much of it, because I was sort of, my ego was very pumped, right? And I was bouncing, and I was having real fights. I was very young, you know, 20 years old, 19 years old, you know. So then when I moved to Hong Kong, I came like that. Now, day one, Sigung was like, oh yeah, welcome, come in. And I was standing, okay, what is everyone doing? While they were standing, okay, I'll stand as well, I'll do my Silim Tao, I'll do it quickly. I did it a couple of times, and he was just standing in the corner watching me. And he came over to me and started standing next to me and started, you know, calling people over. And I swear at the time I was like, yeah, that's right. You know, come on. He's telling people how good I am, right? Same as what you said. You were like, you know, that attitude that you went to the art school. And then I was like, yeah. So sort of, I was trying to look humble and act humble. And then afterwards, I was like, people were like, oh yeah, they were touching my body. And I was like, yeah, feel that. And afterwards, I asked one of the people that could speak English, what did you say? He said, oh, Sifu said, your type of body, your muscle, the way you're holding yourself is exactly the opposite to how you'd want to be in the way that he's teaching. And I was like, say what? But, you know, so it was perfect. From day one, like, all of that build up of, oh yeah, I can do this, I'm the man, and I've been doing Wing Chun, I'm a teacher, I did well in, you know, North Sydney. All of that was chopped off at the head, you know, and then it was perfect. It's exactly what I needed. And for about the first, like, honestly, I mean, when I first went there, I was doing a lot of Chi Sao with Ma and everyone like that. But then after a while, I stopped doing Chi Sao for about 3 years. Not even a little bit of raw, because I was just like, look, I'm doing everything wrong. You know, I had that mindset. I've got to start completely from scratch. I've got to learn how to stand. So when I'm standing, my knees and feet aren't aching, aren't killing me, because they were. I've got to learn how to not be in pain while I'm standing. And then, you know, I guess that's That's what I needed. That's absolutely what I needed. Otherwise, I could have just gone there and gone, he doesn't know, they don't know what he's talking about. I can beat up all your students. You know, I could have gone with that mindset. And that's what people, you know, they come and comment on the videos, Sigung's videos. Oh, this old skinny man will get smashed in the fight. I'll just double leg him, take him down. A blue belt in jiu-jitsu will smash him. And exactly, you just got to laugh and shake your head
They're
and go,
such
all right.
idiots.
Yeah.
They're such
you know.
idiots, aren't they?
Yeah, they just don't know. They don't know what they don't know what they're talking about. They don't just in the same way that someone that hasn't experienced jiu-jitsu, BJJ. I mean, look, there's two sides to the coin, right? A lot of not just Wing Chun, Tai Chi, a lot of Aikido, all of these people that are just like with a structured class with their students, there's compliance, there's all of this. They think that they will just say, oh, yeah, BJJ, nah, try to come and take me down. I'll just poke you in the eyes and elbow you in the back of the head. Those people have no idea, because the same way that the other people don't know what they're talking about with Wing Chun, the other ones don't know, because you go with a blue belt, really, and then say, okay, try to stop him from taking you down, try to poke him in the eye. They'll get you in a position where if you want to take it to that level, they can poke you and your hands will be locked up, you can't poke them. So it doesn't work like that, right? And that's the reason why I'm doing BJJ, because I'm like, okay, in my game as a martial artist, that's missing. Because you know, when I went there, I went with a brown belt and I went all out. You know, he couldn't make me tap for 3 minutes, but I was smashed, I was gassed, and I hurt my elbow joint. And he was fine. He was like, okay, yeah, good, you know, pretty tough. And then I sat down and I watched him go for another hour with everyone.
Wow.
And he was completely fine. Yeah. And then once I started to sort of put my ego down, second class, third class, I'm like, okay, I'm not going to go all out. I want to try and feel. Then I was getting tapped literally every 10 seconds. It's like, you know, choke, tap, arm tap, you know. Then I started to go, okay, there's something that I can, you know, I could force my way in a fight out of it, but he's not even going 15, 20%. It's a brown belt, you know, so let alone black belts and stuff. So there is both sides to the story where people don't know what Chu Shong Tin's talking about and they just judge it. In the other ways, Wing Chun people, like, they don't do any sparring. They don't do, I mean, you come from you're a martial artist. So you understand that just standing and just relaxing and doing a couple of rolls here, that's not going to make you be able to, you know, not kicking the bag, not punching the bag. That's not going to magically make you be able to, you know, fight. Sigung said that. I said, Sigung, if you're Silam Tao, if you're at the highest level of Silam Tao, if you're at your level of Silam Tao, could you be able to fight? He said, no, you need chum Q. You need movement. You need to hit the bag. That's why they were doing 10,000 punches and 3,000 kicks. The people like Choi Chi, Superman, all of those guys, old school guys, that were doing that much. Akang was just doing more Chisa, but the generation a little bit before him was doing that many punches and kicks, because you have to hit the bag. You have to, you know, it has to be so dynamic. But because Sigung changed his teaching, this very interesting part of this lineage, right? Sigung changed his teaching in the last 10 years. So a lot of those guys, a lot of the top dogs, they couldn't do the spine stuff that us younger fellas were doing. They weren't able to respond to him in that way. But then they cheese out with us and they beat the shit out of us, right? So there's two aspects. There is if you will, the yin and yang of within Chu Shong Tin's Wing Chun, right? Now, someone like Ada, right? Which is, I haven't seen Ada due to COVID and all that. I haven't seen her for about a year and a half. But she was my main training partner the last 3 years, because before that it was like Seb, but then Seb got kids and he stopped training and he wasn't training as much. And so Ada became sort of the one I would chase out with all the time. And Sigung was always with her, so I would stick next to her, so I'll get more attention, more time, right? It made sense. Yeah. But someone like Ada, she'd be the first to tell you that she's not a fighter. She can't fight. Even in cheese, if you just roll with her, I've seen the biggest, strongest guys come, you know, white guys come, and 5 minutes of just rolling with her, and they have to stop because their shoulders are knackered. They can't continue, right? But if you start to be dynamic with Ada and start throwing a couple of punches, she won't know how to handle it. Mm-hmm. If you ask her to, like, just lightly throw a kick and a jab, she won't know what to do with it. So she'll be the first to tell you, if you want to learn that kind of stuff, go to Nima. You don't come to me, right? I'm just passing on that last bit of Sigung's teaching, the spine, the Nim Tao, all that kind of stuff. But then there was the flip side. There was people like, let's say, Akam, which was one of the best in Chisa for his time. But he wouldn't be able to sing and all that. So there was at both sides, right? So some people that came the last 10 years of Sigung's teaching, they're like, oh, it's just all about standing. That's all you got to do. That the art's about just standing and doing something. No, it's not. But then, you know, rewind 20 years before that, everyone would say it's just about Chisao, right? Because that's all Sigung was doing. That's what Akam was doing. Hence why Mark, Graham, all of them, they were doing, especially Mark, doing a lot of Chisao. Go back to the 80s or 70s, it was all about holistically, a lot of sparring. So they would put headgear. They would, like if you talk to Marty Anderson, there was a lot of hardcore sparring, like bloody mouth, and they would pad up, and Sigung was encouraging them to go to the ring. So they would go to Taiwan, they would go to Thailand, and they would get in the ring and fight. Sigung was saying you have to go, because before that it was Gongsa, it was the rooftop fights, right? The challenge fights with Wong Shonglong, all of them did it. But then people started to get really badly hurt. The triads got involved. People started disappearing and stuff because of, you know, repercussions of the gong sound stuff, because martial arts was very gang related in the 70s, 80s. And then the rooftop fights became illegal. So because of that, Sigung was like, but you still have to get the experience. Go get in the ring.